And we continue at 2:07 on the John Phillips Show, Talk Radio 790 KABC, broadcasting live from the Morongo Casino Resort and Spa Living Room Studios. Mr. Randy Wangs at the sports desk in Culver City.
John, at Mayor Karen Bass's telephone town hall, she was asked by a constituent what she is doing to get the drugs off of Metro. And this was part of her response.
And so you saw the ambassador programs. You see the ambassadors everywhere. That's one of the new innovations that we're doing.
Really? That's your silver bullet? Urban alchemy?
You may want to consider not using the Metro.
The question was real simple, and we can play the whole clip if you want. What are you going to do to get rid of the drugs? And she starts talking about safe parking for RVs and ambassadors.
Let's hear it.
Okay, this is from Karen Bass's town hall yesterday that was on the phone.
So David is asking, what can you do to stop the drugs on Metro and how you can stop tagging? I'm going to tell you that one role I'm playing now is I'm chairing Metro. And so I tell you, when I first went to Metro meetings, I was surprised that 90% of what we talk about is homelessness and substance abuse. So we have definite plans.
Let that sink in for a moment. You're operating trains, buses, and subways. In theory, your job and the preponderance of your time should be spent on figuring out how to most efficiently get people from point A to point B. But the actual transportation part of the MTA, that takes a back seat to the bums.
That's right.
So we have definite plans to set up safe storage for RVs in Metro's property, maybe some of the lots, the land that Metro owns.
How does that get the meth off the train?
It doesn't.
But also we're looking at building supportive services near Metro so that we can house people, so that people won't try to use the Metro as housing or Metro stations.
Yeah, but how does that get the meth off the train?
It doesn't.
And so you saw the ambassador programs. You see the ambassadors everywhere. That's one of the new innovations that we're doing. So just...
Wait, how does that get the meth off the train?
I feel like this is Groundhog Day.
So I want to tell you that we are absolutely going to address this problem, and it comes up in every single Metro meeting.
Okay, here's the answer. The reason that drug addicts flock to Metro is because they know they can do their drugs without being bothered. As Gavin Newsom would say, period, full stop.
Period, full stop. Enough.
The ambassadors aren't going to do anything to stop them from doing drugs.
No.
No, the ambassadors are probably just going to do drugs with them.
The ambassadors are paid to sit there and look like security. It's like a costume contest every single day.
And many of them are ex-cons themselves.
Well, that's what this is. It's an unemployable jobs program because there are a whole lot of people that whether they have things on their record or they're unqualified for anything, they can't fill any position in city government. There are garbage men vacancies. There are street worker vacancies. There's vacancies in the police department, the fire department. But when you have the job listing for the ambassador that's paid to stand there and look at their phone while crime happens, the line's out the door with applicants.
Imagine what the tourists must think when they show up to Los Angeles and they ride one of our trains. Imagine coming here from Arkansas with your family. Daddy, who's that man over there with a tattoo on his face and purple hair who's leering at Big Sister's cleavage? Oh, no, son, that's not a pervert. That's a safety ambassador. They're here to watch crime as it occurs.
See the yellow vest? By the way, I'm so glad that Karen Bass mentioned that because I remembered that as we're speaking right now is the monthly Metro board meeting. So I get to cut up all that sound tomorrow.
Those meetings aren't as entertaining as the city council meetings because no one's swearing at them.
No. It's a pain in the ass to get into that meeting. You've got to go through a whole process. So while you do have people that say crazy things like we must defund the police and police are racist, you don't get the Jason Reedies to show up at the Metro meeting.
How about the guy with the Mickey Mouse voice? Does he just show up to the council meetings, or does he show up other places too?
As far as I have seen, he only shows up to the LA City Council meetings, and now he has a goat puppet that he does. However, I've seen some crazy people, they show up at every LA City Council meeting and the Board of Supervisors meeting, and then the way Janice Hahn does the Board of Supervisors, every item they discuss has its own public comment. And this one crazy guy signs up for public comment for every item, which is like 30, and then just pretty much goes to say F you to Janice Hahn.
Well, the guy with the goat puppet, he's the modern-day Sherry Lewis and Lamb Chop.
That's your final warning.
It is a real creative, weird situation going down at City Hall and the Board of Supervisors and the Metro Board meetings. Public comment is a fascinating concept.
It is, because you get to hear from the general public. And generally speaking, the public knows nothing.
Are you saying the public is dummy?
That's exactly what I'm saying.
If the cashier is dummy.
If the public wasn't dummy, do you think Ulysses Hernandez would end up on the council?
Because we are the defund the police people, right?
Well, they had to choose between her and Gil Cedillo.
You want to get shot in the head or the chest? Your choice. The big story nationally right now is that mega GOP donors are now urging very popular Virginia Governor Glenn Youngkin to jump into the race. And the fact that they're kicking tires on Glenn Youngkin in a late entry into the presidential race tells you one thing. They are cutting bait on Tim Scott. They are cutting bait on Ron DeSantis. They no longer look at them as viable options.
And some of them, they never looked as viable options.
And I'll tell you, Glenn Youngkin is a very attractive candidate because he has done something that none of the other candidates in the race that I can think of, outside of Chris Christie, but this was long ago when he was an active candidate in New Jersey. But Glenn Youngkin has been able to win elections in purple, if not blue, states in Virginia. South Carolina, which is where Nikki Haley and Tim Scott come from, that's ruby red. Florida, which was purple, that's now a red state. And for a Republican to win in those states, that's the expectation. You're the favorite. You have all the money. You have all the endorsements. You have every advantage you can think of. But not in a place like Virginia. In a place like Virginia, you're swimming upstream. The Democrats have been winning statewide elections there pretty consistently for a while now. And when Glenn Youngkin ran, he ran against a former governor. So he ran against a candidate who had run successfully statewide before. And his approval rating in Virginia is sky high. He's popular. And it's very difficult to do that right now in these United States. Because of Donald Trump and because of Trump derangement syndrome, they have made every single subject under the sun a partisan subject. It used to be that people would split their ticket, particularly when you're talking about state and local races, because you can have all the partisan leanings you want. You still live in a certain city. You still live in a certain place. And if your team screwed it up, you have to vote for the other team so that you don't live in misery. But because everything is now partisan and everything now relates to Donald Trump, your vote for water board, your vote for school board, your vote for city council is now all based on how they come down on Donald Trump and whether or not they like him or dislike him. There's very little ticket splitting that now exists. Every once in a while, you'll see someone break through and you'll see someone cut through the noise and get voters from the opposite side to vote for them consistently. Lonnie Chen did that to a certain extent here in California when he ran for state controller. He was not successful. He didn't get over the finish line, to borrow a cliche from Rob Bonta, but I think he finished with 46% of the vote statewide, something along those lines.
So instead of everyone else statewide that lost by 20 points, he lost by 10.
Right. Or under 10. I think it was single digits. against a totally unqualified and corrupt candidate, by the way. But it's California, so who cares? That's the attitude of the voters. But Glenn Youngkin has been able to do that. He got a lot of people who went out and voted for Joe Biden for president to not only vote for him for governor, they voted for his endorsed candidate for lieutenant governor and attorney general as well. And they are approving of his job. They've stayed with him. It wasn't like they abandoned him after he took over and started implementing his policies. They're happy with his performance. They're happy with his job. And what's weird about Virginia is that, and a lot of southern states used to be like this. I don't know why they do it this way. They just do. But in Virginia, you can only serve one term as governor. There are strict term limits. Here in California, you get 2 lifetime terms. You can serve them consecutively, or you can split them up. In the case of Jerry Brown, he got 4 terms because his first 2 terms happened before term limits were on the books. You can go back and run again after you've sat out a term in Virginia, but you can't do 2 terms in a row. So the minute you put your hand on the Bible as governor of Virginia, you are officially a lame duck. So you have to start looking for your next job. Well, I guess if you're the governor of Virginia, you could run for the U.S. Senate. That's a lateral move, maybe even a step up. Or you can run for president. And if you jump in late, you better have all the big donors behind you. You better have people with deep pockets behind you, because all of these other candidates, including the former president, who's the de facto incumbent in this race, can raise buckets of money and has raised buckets of money. I don't think Glenn Youngkin can defeat Donald Trump in the primary. I think Donald Trump is going to be the Republican nominee, and Joe Biden is going to be the Democratic nominee. However, these are 2 old men. Joe Biden's what, 82 years old, or will be 82 by Election Day?
By Election Day. He just turned 80 this year.
Oh, yes. Should we sing him happy birthday?
We should.
Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday to you. Happy birthday, dear Valen. Happy birthday to you.
And Trump's knocking on the door of 82. By the way, did you see, now that everyone's calling on Menendez to resign in New Jersey, the 2 people that are talking about running for his seat, the 2 people that want his seat, are a congressman who's been in elected office for decades in New Jersey, Frank Pallone, who is in his 70s, or the first lady of the state of New Jersey, the governor's wife, who apparently wants the seat as well. Never change New Jersey. Are you trying to tell me that's not a conflict of interest? You're the governor of that corrupt hellhole, and you tell the corrupt U.S. senator that it's in the best interests of the people of New Jersey for you to resign from an office that you were duly elected to, so I can turn around and appoint my wife to it?
I think at some point people shrug their shoulders and say, well, it's Jersey. We knew what we were getting into.
It's New Jersey. Government's just the company store.
I mean, this is a state where you had retaliatory Chris Christie shut down a bridge because he was mad at people. By the way, did you hear what he said last night at the debate? It was wild.
Which remark are you referring to? Oh, here we go.
I may have gotten a request from Les Siegel to make sure I squeeze one of those in.
My favorite thing when the Nets used to play in New Jersey before they moved to Brooklyn, whenever they would catch Chris Christie at a game, in fact, I think he was just at an NFL game and he was sitting in the owner's box with the owner. When you're in the owner's box, you have to behave. That's like watching a game from a hotel room. It's a little bit different than being out in the seats with the people. But whenever they would catch him at one of those New Jersey Nets games or one of the football games, he would inevitably be eating something. He's kind of like the New Jersey Katie Porter. And it was always interesting to me to watch him eat, to just physically sit there and watch him eat. Because with him, eating was like a sport. He wouldn't just pull out a couple of M&Ms from the bag and throw them in his mouth. He would just take the bag up to his mouth and just inhale what was in there. It was like watching one of those hot dog eating contests on ESPN. It was like he felt that there was someone sitting next to him with a stopwatch saying, if you don't consume this bag of M&Ms in 5 seconds, I'm taking them away from you. So you better eat them fast. It was almost dangerous the way he was eating those M&Ms. Because when you're shoveling them in that fast and you're not even really chewing them, one of them can get stuck in your trach.
It could happen. But that man has a lot of experience in the field. He's a journeyman.
Well, you choke on an M&M, you better hope that someone around you knows the Heimlich. I don't know the Heimlich. Do you know the Heimlich?
Well, in order to perform the Heimlich, you have to be able to get your arms around the waist.
I don't know. The only thing I know about the Heimlich is what I learned on Dumb and Dumber. You put them on the floor and then just start stomping on their chest, right?
Sure. Give that a try.
If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, we have a brand new handy-dandy app that'll help you listen to the podcast version of this show.
That's right. If you listen to the podcast of this show or you listen on the stream, forget all of the other apps that you've been using, because now KABC has their own app, new and improved, and is the easiest way to listen to podcasts of this show and to listen to this station live without any of the other nonsense of those other apps. So just search for KABC AM in the Apple App Store or the Android store, or you can search for 790 KABC. There are so many easy tabs. You just click on podcasts, and there you go. Podcasts of the John Phillips Show. It is that simple. You can listen to everything from your fingertips on your phone. The app also works with Apple CarPlay and Android Car. So I did it yesterday, straightforward. While I was stuck on the 405, I could pull up a podcast in one of those 8-minute KFI commercial breaks. So check out the app, download it. It's the easiest way ever to listen to this station, and most importantly, listen to this show from noon to 3 live, and the podcast every hour that's not noon to 3 live.
Coming up next, we know that the city of Oakland is the employee of the month for the KABC Crime Blotter, but Venice isn't far behind, and they're making a contribution to the blotter. And Randy, it's time to open up the KABC Crime Blotter.
If the cashier is dummy.
Questions?
And this edition takes us to Venice Beach,
where someone was a-drinking and a-driving on the boardwalk. For more, we have a report from KCAL, and it's right here.
Frightening moments on the Venice boardwalk. A suspect drunk driver rams into a pedestrian. LAPD officers and Good Samaritans were able to drag him out of his car. KCAL News reporter Leslie Marin is...
Wait, this guy was so blasted he couldn't even get out of his car after he ran somebody over?
What do you think his BAC was?
I think it might have blown it off the charts.
KCAL News reporter Leslie Marin is live in Venice. And Leslie, this isn't the first time a car has caused trouble on the boardwalk, right?
Yeah, Pat, you remember 10 years ago that deadly hit and run that happened here on the boardwalk. Since then, barriers were put up in hopes of that never happening again. But I can tell you right here on Rose Avenue behind me, there is a clear entrance for vehicles, and that's exactly where this car entered, according to witnesses.
Was he trying to run somebody over?
Maybe he was trying to drive to a bar in Catalina.
Why are you on the boardwalk?
A driver taking a sip out of a beer bottle. You can hear as the man recording pleads with him.
You got to get off the boardwalk.
But he takes off down a crowded Venice boardwalk.
Do we have no police that patrol the boardwalk anymore?
I don't think we have any police, period.
Down a crowded Venice boardwalk.
He's even drinking while he's driving.
So he's not just drunk, he's drinking a beer while he's driving on the boardwalk where cars are not supposed to be.
How many more laws can you break at once?
It's going.
Would he have to be clipping the tags off his mattresses too?
He's even drinking while he's driving.
The video picks up several blocks away. The car now at the Venice basketball courts, where police finally catch up with him.
Back up! Back up!
The suspect, you can see, doesn't want to get out of the car, as bystanders even jump in to pull him out.
Drove away multiple times.
It takes minutes, but eventually he is arrested. But you may have noticed this. His front windshield shattered.
You know, I went like this, like, hey, stop. And he just kept going.
Although it wasn't caught on camera, JR says he tried to get the driver to stop as he was selling jewelry in the boardwalk around 10 a.m. Monday morning. But instead, he says the driver stepped on the gas.
He revved it more, and that's when I lost my balance, and I turned, and my back hit the windshield really hard.
Hey, buddy, 833-88-SHARK. Clark Fielding will take care of you.
I don't know if this guy is familiar with car versus pedestrian, but that's what you would call a mismatch.
And I was like, wow, in my mind, I was like, wow, this is really happening. This guy really went for it.
Police say the suspect, 33-year-old Israel D'Avila, was charged with DUI and assault with a deadly weapon. But it was a terrifying moment for JR and his dog, who was with him.
Now I'm scared of just sitting right here vending.
The situation a sad reminder of just 10 years ago, when a driver went on a hit-and-run rampage on the boardwalk, killing an Italian tourist. Barriers were set up in some areas to prevent that from happening again. But here on Rose Avenue, you can see there are none. And JR says cars drive down the walkway all the time. We even witnessed this SUV drive onto the boardwalk before realizing their mistake.
Why can't we put up a barrier in this one stretch?
You know, you got a couple of things at play here. First and foremost, you have confusion. That's an area that attracts a lot of tourists. It attracts a lot of people from the state of California who don't necessarily live in Venice but want to go there to escape the heat, have a nice day at the beach, whatever the case may be. They don't know what they're doing, and if the signs aren't clear, they're going to make a wrong turn and end up someplace they're not supposed to be. But the other issue at play here is an issue that is of greater importance to the rest of us in the state. And that is when the public knows that the state doesn't care about enforcing the law, then even people who would otherwise be law-abiding don't follow the rules. I don't know if you ever catch yourself doing this, Randy, but I catch myself doing it every so often, where you walk across the street where there isn't a crosswalk, or you park on the line of the bike lane, and instead of moving your car so it's parked appropriately, you just leave it there because who cares? It's California. You can get away with anything. This is what happens when the public understands that the rules don't apply. They assume that the rules don't apply to them either. And when everyone starts acting like that, that's when you end up with motorists on the boardwalk.
No vehicular traffic should come onto the Venice boardwalk, period.
Bring some barriers and just put them on there for the safety of the people here that are eating right here.
JR wants the city to act quick because although he was left with minor bumps and scratches, he knows things could have ended much worse.
You know, had scars and stitches, or worse, slammed me against something and lost my life.
That's two swooshes.
Now,
well, one for every time you got hit by the car.
Now, tonight we did reach out to the city after hours. We are hoping to hear back from them possibly tomorrow on if they have any plans to put up barriers in this area. Reporting live from Venice, Leslie Benning, KCAL News.
Might be the best idea yet.
That could be a drop.
Might be the best idea yet.
The sarcasm coming out of Pat Harvey, who is probably one of the best, most seasoned anchors we have in Los Angeles.
Might be the best idea yet.
Pat Harvey, you're going to the drops folder, my friend.
On this Throwback Thursday, Desi Arnaz edition.
Quite frankly,
you were about to say it.
I almost said it. I didn't, but I almost did. If you'd like to email the show, you can do so at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. That's johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. And Randy, you're monitoring the mailbag.
James writes in at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com. Guys, that was such a cheap shot at Chris Christie. Shame on you. Not. I used to say when he was at the Cowboys games, beach whale spotted in Texas.
It's 2:56 on this Throwback Thursday, Desi Arnaz edition of the John Phillips Show.
Quite frankly,
hearing that music makes me happy instantly, Randy.
We just got a great email. It wasn't even sent to us at johnnydon'tlikeshow@gmail.com, but was to the KABC.com contact us page. And it comes from Kathy, who said, I could not believe someone would recommend Desi Arnaz for the throwback music. I said to myself, ugh. But as it turns out, I love it. Thanks for such a great show. By the way, the music is great.
One of my favorite episodes of I Love Lucy was when Ricky took Lucy and Fred and Ethel down to Cuba to meet his family. And Lucy, after walking the streets of Havana and meeting all of his friends and family, came back to Ethel and said, Ethel, you're not going to believe it. The people in Cuba are so unbelievably smart. And Ethel turns to Lucy and says, why would you say that? And she said, Ethel, these kids, some of them, they're 3, 4, 5 years old, and they're already speaking Spanish.
There's a reason that show is timeless, and generation after generation can watch it, and it's still funny 60 years later.
I never get tired of it. All right, that's going to do it for us today, but we'll be back tomorrow at noon for Jimmy Buffett Friday right here on Talk Radio 790 KABC.